So I've just been enjoying some PG Wodehouse and my breakfast. I wanted to show you guys though, I did manage to hang the quilt. My cousin Becky made me this beautiful, beautiful quilt with all of the books on it. It's so fabulous. And I knew I wanted to get it up so that I could see it all the time. I got these hooks from Amazon. They were just called quilt hooks. I didn't want to have to, you know, put holes in the wall, so I grabbed some of the heavy-duty command hooks, and these worked really well. I actually used two, or they're not hooks, they're command strips. I used 2 strips on each one, and it has been holding now. It doesn't look like it's weakening, so that's good. But yeah, these books on the quilt are just so fabulous. It's such a cool design, and all the fun little touches. Here's Snow White hiding over here. She's so sweet. There's the BTS book. All the teapots, just such a lovely quilt. I feel like it fits the space perfectly. So I did finish after the funeral, which, as the title suggests, it takes place right after a funeral. A rich old gentleman has passed away and his fortune is being split up between all of his nieces and nephews, and it seems like the death was fine and straightforward, but then something somebody says after the funeral starts us on this journey where Poirot himself becomes involved. I really like the colors on this cover and Agatha Christie's signature, and these look so cool when they're lined up together. I really enjoyed this one. I don't know if this is considered a spoiler or not, but if you really don't want spoilers, skip ahead just in case. there were so many suspects and all of them could have done it. Like all of them had motive, all of them had opportunity. And as we were getting to the end of the book, I was wondering how she was going to wrap it up because it's like there are too many people who could have done it. But actually it was a great twist at the ending. I thought it was really, really good. So yes, I had not yet broken that Agatha Christie in. Another book that I'm going to break in here is Oscar Wilde. I bought this beautiful vintage classics edition last month. Isn't that such a fun cover? I've read The Importance of Ernest though, so I thought it would be fun to start with some of the other plays. So just the other day, I was sitting and reading Lady Windermere's Fan, which I did quite like. There are so many witty quotes in Oscar Wilde. It feels like, you know, all those things you see on Pinterest. They all feel like Pinterest quotes. In fact, most of them, it feels like, have become Pinterest quotes. Like there was one in Lady Windermere's Fan that was like, we're all in the gutter, but some of us are looking up at the stars. And like, I'm almost sure I've seen that on like a Instagram graphic. Yes, Lord Darlington was the witty man who had all of the witty things to say. Nowadays, so many conceited people go about society pretending to be good that I think it shows rather a sweet and modest disposition to pretend to be bad. Besides, there is this to be said: if you pretend to be good, the world takes you very seriously. If you pretend to be bad, it doesn't. Such is the astounding stupidity of optimism. You look on me as being behind the age. Well, I am. I should be sorry to be on the same level as an age like this. You think the age very bad? Yes, nowadays people seem to look on life as a speculation. It is not a speculation, it is a sacrament. Lady Windermere is very sincere, but also somewhat naive, and she does come to a crisis. Her husband is seen about town with a woman with a dubious past. The story does take a very interesting turn. Luckily, it's quick and it's short because I was actually super anxious. I was like, how is this gonna turn out? Although these things always get me in books. Like the whole crux of the crisis is that the husband is not just honest with the wife. He should have just told her what was going on. Like it's always better to just be honest about what's happening, however unpleasant it seems, because the misunderstandings caused by him not telling Lady Windermere the truth are like worse than the truth. So Oscar Wilde, of course, has so much wit. I love his mixture of frivolity and seriousness. He does a really great job. Speaking of that mixture, one of the other plays I did start reading, Salome, the next play after Lady Windermere's Fan, and that is so different from like The Importance of Being Earnest or, you know, Lady Windermere's Fan. I feel like usually Oscar Wilde, it's like mostly frivolous but then touches of seriousness, whereas Salome seems to be more like mostly serious with touches of frivolousness, if that makes sense. The setting is so unexpected too. It's about John the Baptist. And Salome is the daughter or stepdaughter of Herod, who requests that, who wants John the Baptist's head. And she seems kind of unbalanced. And there's lots of very sort of lyrical language and symbolism. You are always looking at her. You look at her too much. It is dangerous to look at people in such fashion. Something terrible may happen. And like the moon is out. Anyway, I haven't quite finished Salome. And I don't quite know what to think of it. It's very different from the others. And after all this, I probably will have to reread The Importance of Being Earnest because it's, I mean, that's the cover, and that's just such a classic Wilde. We're gonna have to see if any of these actually bloom for me. I did also sow some outside, so I thought it could be fun to try indoor and outdoor. Exciting package that just arrived. I ordered some Walden dresses. So Walden is this British brand, and I feel like I've looked at their catalog for years and paged through it, and they always have really bright and colorful designs and kind of more classic styles that are my look, but they're kind of pricey, and I've never seen one that felt like it was, you know, just exactly perfect. Until recently, they were having a, they had a coupon code on their website, and I thought I would order some summer things. I think I'm most excited for this one. Oh, this says Walden on the bag, and for a minute I was like, that's not printed on the dress, is it? But that wasn't printed on the dress online. Okay, this one I feel like could be cute for summer or fall, because it's got some kind of 3/4 length sleeves. I'm gonna have to try it on, but oh my goodness, doesn't that look lovely? Just this really cute denim dress. I think the skirt should have just enough swing to it. I really like the kind of detailing there. And then this one, I think I'm most excited about this one. This reminds me of something that my calendar girl would wear. I could definitely see this being featured as a calendar girl style. Look at that! Oh my goodness. With the sleeves, it's super cute. The fabric is lighter than I would have pictured, but I can't wait to try it on. Isn't it always a pity to untie the bows? Like, they come so perfectly tied from the factory. It's got a stretchy neckline, so you could do it off shoulder or on shoulder. Finishing Walden, which I've been reading all throughout this spring. Out here in my kayak on the lake, I feel like Thoreau would definitely approve. I did read this back when I was in college, and it was this same edition, but it was used when I read it, so not all of the notes are mine, but there was one I found that I'm pretty sure is mine. It was really neat. He was a surveyor, so he's describing plumbing the depth of Walden Pond. See, that's definitely not my handwriting, and I was typically not a highlighter, but I do like this quote. After a still winter night, I awoke with the impression that some question had been put to me, which I had been endeavoring in vain to answer in my sleep, as what, how, when, where, but there was dawning nature, in whom all creatures live, looking in at my broad windows with serene and satisfied face, and no question on her lips. I awoke to an answered question, to nature and daylight. Nature puts no question and answers none which we mortals ask. She has long ago taken her resolution. O Prince, our eyes contemplate with admiration and transmit to the soul the wonderful and varied spectacle of this universe. That is from Mahabharata. Although he also loves the Bhagavad Gita. Later he's talking about how ice cutters came to Walden Pond and that apparently some of the ice from New England was sold like very, very far afield. It even went to India. So he was saying that like the buckets that the authors, you know, the gods of the Bhagavad Gita drew their water from the Ganges were brushing against his bucket, drawing water from Walden Pond. I cut my way first through a foot of snow and then a foot of ice and opened a window under my feet where, kneeling to drink, I looked down into a quiet parlor of the fishes, pervaded by a softened light as through a window of ground glass. With its bright sanded floor the same as in summer, there a perennial waveless serenity reigns as in the amber twilight sky, corresponding to the cool and even temperament of the inhabitants. Heaven is under our feet as well as over our heads. This was definitely one of my symbols, so I'm pretty sure I highlighted this passage, and this was the one about plumbing the depth of Walden Pond and how if we could survey kind of the nature of man, perhaps we need only know how his shores trend and his adjacent country or circumstances to infer his depth and concealed bottom. If he is surrounded by mountainous circumstances and Achillean shore, apparently Achilles lived in a mountainous region, whose peaks overshadow and are reflected in his bosom, they suggest a corresponding depth in him. There is a bar across the entrance of our every cove or particular inclination. Each is our harbor for a season in which we are detained and partially landlocked. That which was at first but an inclination in the shore, in which a thought was harbored, becomes an individual lake cut off from the ocean, wherein the thought secures its own conditions, changes, perhaps from salt to fresh, becomes a sweet sea, dead sea, or a marsh. At the advent of each individual into his life, may we not suppose that such a bar has risen to the surface somewhere? It is true, we are such poor navigators that our thoughts, for the most part, stand off and on upon a harborless coast, are conversant only with the bites of the bays of poesy, or steer for the public ports of entry, and go into the dry docks of science, where they merely refit for this world, and no natural currents concur to individualize them. Thoreau was talking about his visitors, including Emerson. Of course, he doesn't name them. The footnotes let you know who he's talking about. But he has a whole page dedicated to Amos Bronson Alcott, Louisa May Alcott's father. How blind that cannot see serenity. I like that quote. Yeah, he obviously thought a lot of Alcott. His words and attitude always suppose a better state of things than other men are acquainted with, and he will be the last man to be disappointed as the ages revolve. He has no venture in the present. Reading about Amos Bronson Alcott as a father, he's not very impressive. Like, he did not really provide for his family very well. But I've never actually read his writings, so I'll have to do that sometime. I like his daughter's book. He's describing the animals that came to eat the corn that he scattered, and he says that the jays were manifestly thieves, and I had not much respect for them. But the squirrels, though at first shy, went to work as if they were taking what was their own. Look, he says that the chickadees got so used to him, they were so familiar that at length one alighted on an armful of wood which I was carrying in, and pecked at the sticks without fear. I once had a sparrow alight upon my shoulder for a moment while I was hoeing in a village garden, and I felt that I was more distinguished by that circumstance than I should have been by any epaulette I could have worn. You know, I am just realizing I don't think that I have ever introduced you guys to my kayak before. I bought this about a year ago. This was my let's think of a way to stay sane in 2020 purchase. It's an 8-footer, a Sun Dolphin, Aruba Sun Dolphin. Super convenient to transport places, and it has been so much fun finding different spots to take it out, creeks and lakes. It's even been in the ocean. I do feel comfortable enough in it that I do sometimes bring a book along with me. I have never, knock on wood, knock on plastic, knock on water, I have never upset in my kayak thus far. But yes, especially for a book like Thoreau, this felt like an especially appropriate setting. I would love to go to the actual Walden Pond. I am somewhat late finishing this week's video, and I'm trying to get my last game capture card footage, but look at how ridiculous this is. The switch has to be plugged in to the power. The switch also has to be plugged in to the game capture card. The game capture card has to be plugged in to the computer and to the monitor, and then you can finally capture the footage. It's like, I'm not sure it's worth it, but my library, see there's my beautiful new library. I am excited to share, also excited for a little virtual Animal Crossing BTS concert prior to the actual online Suwuzu muster concert, which should be super fun. So I just made myself a lovely cup of coffee, and I thought it'd be fun to sit down and have a quick June reading chat. Do you guys like my Grand Floridian get up today? I was using this mug recently. My cousin Becky and her friend came to stay, which was super fun. And I had it out on the table, like, you know, just sitting there. And then I picked it up, and this happened like separately, both of them separately. When I picked it up, we're like, oh no, because it looks like a stack of teacups. They did a very effective job, but actually it's all one mug, so you can safely pick it up and take a sip. Yes, I have my Life is Grand shirt here as well. I was trying to think of something that would match this Kath Kidston headband that I got not too long ago. It's such a pretty like green and pink floral pattern, but the problem with a pattern in your headband, it's like then you either have to match this pattern to a pattern in your outfit, or else your outfit should just be more in plain colors. I've been meaning to wear this headband more. I just keep thinking, well, what exactly will it match? So when it comes to reading, I have a tale of woe to tell you guys. I lost my Kindle. I have no idea where I put it. I've looked in all the obvious places, which I think means it must be in a very unobvious place. So probably like in 6 months, I'll come across it and be like, how on earth did this get here? I mean, obviously I have no shortage of books to read, but when it comes to books that I put on my shelves, I always want it to be something that I love, you know, that I'll want to come back to and reference again. So if it's something that like I'm just reading for the first time, I'll probably get it on Kindle first, especially old books. It's so nice. There are so many in the public domain that it's not too hard to find a free Kindle copy or like a cheap copy. With my Shakespeare plays, especially, I've been reading those on Kindle. And so now that I've lost my Kindle, I've unfortunately fallen behind. I have not yet finished Richard II, which was my May Shakespeare, and obviously I haven't even started one for June, and here it's getting towards the end of June. I guess I could just buy the Shakespeare editions, although over the years, BookTube has definitely kind of spoiled me for just like buying random books. It's like, now I think about what I'm gonna buy, I think about, you know, which series, which cover I want, which edition. I often just borrow my mom's Arden Shakespeare's. Unfortunately, she doesn't have like Richard II or like a lot of the lesser known ones, which are the ones I'm trying to read this year. And I'm not 100% sure which Shakespeare edition I would want to buy for my own shelves. I did find, when I was reading King John, here he is, this really fun little edition. The spine is printed very oddly because when the spine is upright, the book is upside down. What is this? Non sans droit, it says in the front. The Temple Shakespeare. I guess I could try to get the other plays in this copy because I do kind of like this. It's very handy to just slip in your bag. But yes, I'm so frustrated. I really wanted to make more progress in my Shakespeare, and like I could read it. I have the Kindle app on my phone, but I really do not like reading on my phone. It's funny, the Kindle I guess isn't that much bigger, but it just feels a lot bigger than my phone. However, obviously there is no shortage of books. I decided I would pick up a PG Wodehouse Summer Lightning. Seems perfect for summer. Definitely nice to have a sunny trip to Blandings, see what trouble is brewing there. I finished Walden, which was wonderful, but I do need to copy out my favorite quotations from Walden, my quote journal. I've fallen so far behind in. I feel like maybe I should just do a whole video that's me catching up on my quote journal, and that could be fun because it could be kind of a mid-year reading check-in. Speaking of journals, as if I needed another notebook. Another notebook is like the last thing I need, but I spotted this and I thought it would be really fun. plant hair, don't care. I thought it would be perfect for all of my gardening. What I bought, how it's doing. So far, I've only killed one plant. Actually, there were 2 seedlings that didn't make it. But it was only one plant that I bought nicely from like the garden center that didn't survive. The others seem to be getting along pretty well. I posted about this on Instagram, but I recently wrote an article about Martin and Osa Johnson. If you've watched my reading blogs in the past, you'll have heard me talk about this book. I first spotted this fabulous zebra stripe cover at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. It's behind one of the glass cases in the Sunset Lounge. You can also see Martin and Osa's beautiful photographs all over the walls. These 2 were incredible adventurers, photographers, filmmakers in all these exotic locations, the South Seas, all over Africa in the 20s and 30s. And they were really like on the ground with like every new innovation in technology, when photography was invented, when, you know, moving pictures were invented, when sound was added. They even learned how to fly a plane. Both of them got their pilot's licenses so that they were able to fly over, you know, over all these incredible locations. They moved to this remote lake, Lake Paradise in Kenya for 4 years to get these beautiful wildlife photos. Anyway, there's a Martin and Osa Safari Museum in their hometown, Chinook, Kansas. And the director, Conrad, has contacted me in the past. It's always fun to keep in touch. And recently he reached out because they were doing a 60th anniversary of the museum, a special tab in their local newspaper. And he asked if I would write an article about how I found Martin and Osa and about the books. And so that was super, super fun. Just writing the article now is making me want to reread I Married Adventure or 4 Years in Paradise. Also on my to-do list is to film my shelf tour. I'm hoping to get that up next week. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what the sunshine does today and is it bright enough. Anyway, that's how my bookish weekend is going thus far. I might go and sit out in my hammock. One last summer reading project I've been contemplating. I've been trying to decide what we should do for our next read along on my Discord group. And we've done Elizabeth Goudge and P.G. Wodehouse, so the third one we obviously should do is Jane Austen. It's been a while since I reread Pride and Prejudice. I started rereading it last summer, but like I only got a couple chapters in and then didn't end up finishing it. So I'm thinking that could be fun to do a group read on my Discord of Pride and Prejudice. If you haven't joined my Discord yet and you're interested, you can just send me an email or a DM on Instagram and I'll send you the invite link. I have not, unfortunately, made too much progress in my beautiful Botany for Gardeners book, although I am really looking forward to getting into this more. It's hard to like remember where you left off. I feel like I need to like go steady up and then I can kind of pick up the thread again. One of the things that this author mentions is how astonishingly successful grass has been. And I never thought of it that way, but it's true. Like grass as a plant has been just incredibly successful, more successful than any other plant pretty much. So yes, this book is just fun because it gives you kind of obviously scientific information, but also just new perspectives on plants. Part of the reason I haven't been getting as far ahead in this book is because I've been trying to get my plants to grow. Here, we'll go out and take a quick look because I have bought some new plants. So these guys are gladiolus, and I thought they were not going to come up until the fall, but just look at how happily they have already been. This isn't a plant, but I don't think I've shown you guys yet. I have a hammock. Isn't this wonderful? So I already had the hammock, and I thought, well, maybe I'll be able to string it between the 2 trees, and I thought I was gonna have to use straps, but then somebody else already used this space for a hammock because there were already the little pins in the trees, and it just felt, you know, meant to be. Absolutely perfect. It's been so much fun to sit in this hammock and read. And yes, I've surrounded myself with some plant friends. So over here, I love this one. I thought it was gonna be white. I didn't know what color it was gonna be when I bought it, but look at what a pretty purple kind of Bora hay-ish color. I hope it's happy. That somehow those don't look very happy. Hopefully these will come out correctly though. But yes, this makes me feel very Animal Crossing because I have a whole bunch of hydrangea bushes on my Animal Crossing island. So it's fun to have them here as well. See, he doesn't look very happy. And I hope that these are actually going to bloom into flowers, and I don't know why they look like that, you know? I don't know what they're supposed to look like. Obviously, they're a little late. My Animal Crossing hydrangeas are already in bloom. And then over here, I have some impatiens. These, see, I guess when you start gardening, you just have to expect some failures. This, when I first bought it, was just like a ball of pink flowers. And of course, it always looks amazing at the garden center. It was actually in a hanging basket, but it didn't like the place where I wanted to hang it is quite sunny, and I didn't realize impatiens prefer the shade. This spot is sunny right now, but it gets shady for most of the rest of the day. So I'm hoping that this will be a little happier outside. I have not been able it just has not seemed at all happy inside. So I thought I would just put it in the ground and see what happens. It does still have some new, little buds coming out here and there. So I feel like if it's putting out new buds, then like things can't be too bad. Of all the plants that I planted here, this one seems to be the happiest and to have grown the most. My cheddar pinks, that's a pink dianthus, oh my gosh, is that a bug? Wow, that's a weird little caterpillar. I hope you're not bad for wow, it's a very colorful little caterpillar. See, I don't know, is he bad for the plant? Should I be worried? Yeah, so the dianthus, pink dianthus, is still putting out new blooms, which is good, but I also feel like it's obviously not as happy as it was when I bought it from the garden center, but I guess that's to be expected. This is a new plant that I've added to my menagerie, to my little garden. They were just so colorful and pretty. I can't remember the name. But over here, I can give you a little seedling update. Look at these guys. It's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe? These are sunflowers. Most of these guys are sunflowers. I tried to leave the packets near here so that I could remind myself what was what. Look at all of these guys reaching for the light. They're so tiny and delicate. And then these ones have also started to come up. Very exciting. Oh wow, these have just appeared. These were like the last ones that I was like, oh, they haven't come up yet, but look, here they are. But yes, I'm not sure like if I should transplant them, at what point I should transplant them, if they need to be staked. I'm gonna have to do some more research. When I planted these, I was like, probably I will never see them. This will just be a pail of dirt forever. But just last weekend, the reading at Mass was about seedlings, and I thought it was so beautiful. It was from the Gospel of Mark. Jesus said to the crowds, "This is how it is with the kingdom of God. It is as if a man were to scatter seed on the land, and would sleep and rise night and day, and through it all the seed would sprout and grow, he knows not how. Of its own accord the land yields fruit, first the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the ear. And when the grain is ripe, he wields the sickle at once, for the harvest is come." He said, "To what shall we compare the kingdom of God, or what parable can we use for it? It is like a mustard seed that, when it is sown in the ground, is the smallest of all the seeds on the earth. But once it is sown, it springs up and becomes the largest of plants and puts forth the large branches, so that the birds of the sky can dwell in its shade." I just thought that was beautiful, because here, look, I was feeling like this is just going to be a pot of dirt, and now it's full of new little green life. And I just thought the gospel reading was a beautiful reminder that our lives are the same way. Sometimes it feels like, it feels like nothing is growing, nothing is changing. And yet underneath it all, God's will is working in your life, just like the seeds are growing under the earth and will come up in their season. God has a season for all things. Reading within view of the water is one of the loveliest things. I'm just enjoying some summer lightning. As you can tell from the cover, the Empress of Blandings, the pig, features very largely in this. The Empress of Blandings is a great feeder. Combined bedroom and restaurant is what they refer to her pen as. Everybody likes to see somebody eating. Ronnie leaned over the rail, absorbed. He poised the tennis ball and with an absent-minded flick of the wrist, bounced it on the silver medalist's back. Finding the pleasant ponging sound which resulted soothing to harassed nerves, he did it again. The Empress made excellent bouncing. And the bouncing does help Ronnie to come up with a plan. The dawn of another day crept upon Blanding's castle. Hour by hour, the light grew stronger till, piercing the curtains of Ronnie's bedroom, it woke him from a disturbed slumber. He turned sleepily on the pillow. He was dimly conscious of the most extraordinary dream, all about stealing pigs. In the dream, he sat up with a jerk. Like cold water dashed in his face, had come the realization that it had been no dream. Few things have such a tonic effect on a young man accustomed to be a little heavy on waking in the morning as the discovery that he has stolen a prize pig overnight. Usually at this hour, Ronnie was more or less of an inanimate mass till kindly hands brought him his early cup of tea, but today he thrilled all down his pajama-clad form with a novel alertness. Not since he had left school had he sprung out of bed, but he did so now. And then, of course, when they come and tell him the news, he has to pretend to be surprised. I seem frightfully surprised. I am surprised. Why shouldn't I be surprised? All right, just as you say. Spring about a bit more, though, another time when I bring you these sensational items. So the love of Ronnie's life is Sue, and they are hoping to get married. But Ronnie is super jealous of, like, anyone who pays Sue any attention, and Sue likes to dance with Hugo. So Sue goes out to dance. You know, she's still true to Ronnie. Like, she just feels like dancing, and I just like this description. Leopold's justly famous band, its cheeks puffed out and its eyeballs rolling, was playing a popular melody with lots of stomp in it. And for the first time since she had accepted Hugo's invitation to the dance, Sue, gliding round the floor, was conscious of a spiritual calm. Her conscience, quieted by the moaning of the saxophone, seemed to have retired from business. It realized, no doubt, the futility of trying to pretend that there was anything wrong in a girl enjoying this delightful exercise. So, unfortunately, I still have not located my Kindle, but I did cave and I visited a used bookstore and I found these. They were super cheap. They weren't 65 cents, but they were less than $2 a piece. And I do kind of like these Pelican Shakespeares. I like the globe cover especially. So I now have Richard II and Henry IV Part 1. I'm working my way through the Henry plays. King John does have a Henry in it, but it must be Henry the second or third, but Richard II directly precedes Henry IV and kind of goes straight into it. Richard III is more well known, but I quite liked Richard II. I powered through it, so now I'm not too far behind. I have like 5 days left in June, so I might be able to catch up. Richard II is not a good king. The common people are not a fan of him. He is kind of slowly dispatching all of his relatives. His father or grandfather had 7 sons, so they frequently mention the seven sons of Edward. And I was thinking, when you read and study British history, especially the kings, when the king doesn't have a son, then he doesn't have an heir, so his line is not secure. But on the other hand, in this case, when the king has 7 sons, the line is also somewhat unstable because they kind of end up warring with each other. Richard II seems a little paranoid, although you don't see it at first. It's a couple scenes or maybe a couple acts in when you see the true colors of the king. But he has been dispatching his brothers and uncles and nephews, and he ends up banishing Bolingbroke, who is Henry IV. Bolingbroke and Norfolk were about to duel, and the king just suddenly breaks it up, and he banishes Bolingbroke for, I think, like 6 years. So the king gives Norfolk a worse banishment after the king has refused to let Bolingbroke and Norfolk duel. It's like Bolingbroke, Henry, still won't let the quarrel go. Norfolk, so far as to mine enemy, by this time had the king permitted us, one of our souls had wandered in the air, banished this frail sepulchre of our flesh. As now our flesh is banished from this land, confess thy treasons ere thou fly the realm. Since thou hast far to go, bear not along the clogging burden of a guilty soul. Shakespeare certainly has a way with words. Since correction lieth in those hands which made the fault that we cannot correct, put we our quarrel to the will of heaven, who, when
When they see the hours ripe on earth, will rain hot vengeance on offenders' heads. It's understandable why people are turning against Richard, because he's being so unreasonable. You pluck 1,000 dangers on your head, you lose 1,000 well-disposed hearts, and prick my tender patience to those thoughts which honor and allegiance cannot think. Once Bolingbroke is out of England, the king essentially takes that opportunity to take all of Bolingbroke's money and possessions and use it to fight his own war. Yes, there's this whole idea throughout that, you know, Richard II is the God-anointed king. When Bolingbroke rebels against him and tries to overthrow Richard II, it's like on the one hand, he is a royal descendant, but on the other hand, it's not his turn, you know. We are amazed, and thus long have we stood to watch the fearful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourself thy lawful king. And if we be, how dare thy joints forget to pay their awful duty to our presence? If we be not, show us the hand of God that hath dismissed us from our stewardship, for well we know no hand of blood and bone can gripe the sacred handle of our scepter. It's funny how the sympathy of the play kind of turns, because at the beginning you sympathize more with Bolingbroke because Richard has not been being a good king. So it's like, well, yeah, someone should overthrow him. But then towards the end of the play, it's like Shakespeare seems to want you to sympathize more with Richard, who, even though he had not so trimmed and dressed his land as we this garden, even though he had not been taking care of England as he ought, is Bolingbroke really within his grounds to overthrow Richard and claim the crown for himself? Richard sort of prophesies that Henry IV might have difficulty in keeping his crown. The people who are friends of Bolingbroke now might not always be his friends. Northumberland, thou ladder wherewithal the mounting Bolingbroke ascends my throne, the time shall not be many hours of age, more than it is, ere foul still gathering head shall break into corruption. Thou shalt think, though he divide the realm and give thee half, it is too little, helping him to all, and he shall think that thou, which knowest the way to plant unrightful kings, wilt know again, being ne'er so little urged another way, to pluck him headlong from the usurped throne. The love of wicked men converts to fear, that fear to hate, and hate turns one or both to worthy danger and deserved death. So yes, I'm interested to see if Northumberland will be in Henry IV, which actually we could look it up right now. In the dramatis personae at the beginning, is Northumberland here? Oh look, Henry Percy, Earl of Northumberland. And Henry Percy Hotspur, his son. I'm pretty sure Hotspur is definitely going to cause trouble in Henry IV. I have not read this quite yet. I was reading a little bit of the introduction, and I liked how the editor was talking about kind of similar to how we were saying where your sympathies lie in Richard II, where your sympathies lie in Henry IV, because in this, Henry IV wants to go on a crusade to the Holy Land to like atone for his sins in just usurping the throne. And I think that Hotspur is the rebel who is going to be standing against Bolingbroke, against Henry IV. Henry V also is a major character in this, and of course there's a second part of Henry IV, and then there is Henry V. There are two more plays. And this editor is saying, well, obviously Henry V is the hero and the one who is meant to have our sympathies, but it doesn't matter. People still seeing this play like Hotspur. I guess Hotspur is a great role to play. I usually skip introductions. I just happened to read a couple pages of this one, and it is making me more excited to read the play. So yes, it's nice to be a little bit back on track with my Shakespeare project. If I manage to finish Henry IV Part 1 in June, then I will be 6 for 6 for 2021. Hopefully my Kindle will turn up again before too long. Or maybe I'll just go and try to find a Pelican of Henry IV Part 2, which will probably be July's Shakespeare. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this month's reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. I have all of my reading vlogs and bookish videos organized in a playlist, so it will probably be popping up on the screen if you want to watch some more bookish videos. Hope you've had a wonderful reading month. Definitely let me know what books you've been enjoying down in the comments below. I hope you have a magical and a bookish day, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye!